because for 4 years, I've been screaming, not just Diddy, but Diddy and Jay-Z are monsters.
The streets have been buzzing non-stop, and this time it wasn't just rumors or recycled headlines. Jaguar Wright dropped a bombshell that sent shockwaves through the entire hip-hop world. Her words didn't just stir conversation, they made people nervous. According to her, buried inside the legal storm surrounding Shawn Diddy Combs was information that even 50 Cent had kept in the shadows. As her claims spread, the mood shifted. This wasn't gossip anymore. It felt like the board was being flipped, and powerful pieces were suddenly exposed under bright lights. Jaguar Wright has never been known for staying quiet, and once again, she positioned herself as a voice willing to go where others refuse. She didn't just speak on Diddy, she connected dots, hinted at hidden footage, and suggested that what the public had seen so far was only a fraction of the truth. Her statements came at a time when the culture was already on edge, and they landed with precision. Because when someone like Jaguar speaks, it's not random. It's calculated, and it usually means something bigger is unfolding behind the scenes. That tension only intensified when Netflix released Shawn Combs: The Reckoning on December 2nd, 2025. From the moment it dropped, it became clear this was not a typical celebrity documentary. This 4-part series didn't aim to polish an image or celebrate a legacy. Instead, it felt like an investigation, cold, methodical, and unafraid. The series traced the rise and fall of Shawn Diddy Combs, from visionary music mogul and brand architect to one of the most controversial figures hip-hop has ever produced. Every episode was framed through the lens of allegations, lawsuits, and federal charges that ultimately led him into a courtroom, not a red carpet. What made this documentary even more powerful was who stood behind it. Executive produced by Curtis 50 Cent Jackson, the project carried a weight that couldn't be ignored. 50 Cent isn't just a hip-hop icon, he's known for speaking when others stay silent, for pulling back curtains people work hard to keep closed. His involvement alone signaled that this series was not going to play it safe. This wasn't about industry loyalty. This was about putting uncomfortable truths on display. From the very first episode, the documentary sets a different tone by opening with footage the public had never seen before. These were not recycled concert clips or edited interviews pulled from archives. This was raw, real, and unsettling video captured in the days leading up to Diddy's federal arrest. Cameras followed him inside hotel rooms, private meetings, legal discussions, and tense moments where the pressure was impossible to hide. You could see it in his posture, his voice, and the silence between words. These clips showed a man in the middle of a storm, fully aware that everything he built was at risk of collapsing. What shocked viewers even more was the source of this footage. According to the documentary, these videos were filmed by a videographer Diddy himself had hired for a separate project. This wasn't hidden surveillance or leaked security footage. This was material captured with trust, intended for one purpose, and later revealed to serve another. When Netflix aired it, audiences were given what the executive producers described as truth on tape. No narration needed. The images spoke for themselves. But the release of the documentary didn't come without resistance. Just days before the series was scheduled to stream, Diddy's legal team fired back aggressively. They issued a cease and desist order to Netflix, calling the documentary a shameful hit piece, according to their statement. The footage used in the series was unauthorized, misused, and in some cases, allegedly stolen. They argued that the documentary crossed legal and ethical lines, portraying Diddy unfairly before his day in court. Diddy's spokesperson went even further, claiming that Combs had been documenting his own life since the age of 19, with the intention of telling his story on his own terms. According to them, Netflix taking that footage and reframing it within a critical narrative was not only misleading, but fundamentally illegal. They accused the platform of stripping context, manipulating timelines, and weaponizing private moments to damage his reputation. The message was clear: this wasn't storytelling, it was an attack. Netflix, however, didn't back down. The platform stood by the documentary, emphasizing that the material had been lawfully obtained and responsibly presented. Behind the scenes, sources suggested that the legal battle itself became part of the story, another example of power, attempting to control narrative. And that only fueled public curiosity even more, because whenever lawyers rush in to silence something, people assume there's something worth hearing. As the series progressed, it painted a portrait of a man who lived at the intersection of ambition, control, and excess. The documentary revisited Diddy's early rise, his ability to spot talent, and his transformation of bad boy records into a cultural powerhouse. But it also highlighted the darker pattern stories of manipulation, intimidation, and silence. Former associates, industry insiders, and legal experts offered perspectives that challenged the image fans had known for decades. This is where Jaguar Wright's comments became impossible to ignore. She suggested that certain revelations were intentionally softened, that some truths were still being protected, even in a documentary this bold. According to her, there were layers beneath layers, connections that reached beyond music, beyond celebrity, and into systems that don't like exposure. Her implication that 50 Cent himself might be holding back added fuel to the fire. Because if even someone as outspoken as 50 was choosing restraint, what did that say about the scale of what remained hidden? The documentary also raised uncomfortable questions about how the music industry operates when power goes unchecked. It explored how fame can shield behavior, how money can delay accountability, and how silence becomes a currency. Legal analysts in the series pointed out how long allegations had followed Diddy without consequence, and how systems often fail when influence enters the room. The federal charges didn't come overnight, they came after years of whispers, settlements, and closed doors. What makes Shawn Combs' The Reckoning so impactful is that it doesn't pretend to deliver final judgments. Instead, it presents evidence, testimony, and timelines, allowing viewers to draw their own conclusions. That approach makes it even more unsettling. There is no dramatic verdict, no clean ending, only a growing sense that the full truth is still unfolding. By the time the final episode ends, one thing becomes clear: this documentary is not just about Diddy. It's about how power operates in hip-hop and beyond. It's about who gets protected, who gets sacrificed, and who controls the story when millions of dollars are at stake. Jaguar Wright's warnings echo louder after the credits roll, leaving audiences wondering how much more exists beyond what they've seen. And now the culture is left with questions that refuse to fade. Was this documentary the full exposure, or just the beginning? Are their names still being shielded? And if footage like this could surface after decades, what else is sitting in vaults, waiting for the right moment to be released? One thing is undeniable: the silence has been broken. Whether justice follows remains uncertain, but the conversation has shifted. And once that happens, there's no putting the truth back in the shadows. The board has been flipped, and everyone is watching where the pieces fall. Netflix and director Alexandria Stapleton have made one thing very clear from the start: they are not backing down. Despite criticism, speculation, and growing controversy surrounding the documentary, both Netflix and Stapleton have consistently stated that every piece of footage used in the series was obtained legally and responsibly. In multiple interviews, Stapleton emphasized that all rights were properly cleared and that her team took deliberate steps to protect confidentiality where necessary. According to her, this project was never about exploiting shock value, but about presenting a story that had long been avoided. Netflix echoed the same stance, standing firmly behind the content and refusing to pull or alter the series, despite mounting public pressure. At the same time, 50 Cent stepped into the spotlight to clarify his own role and intentions behind the project. Appearing on Good Morning America, he pushed back against claims that the documentary was fueled by personal grudges or industry beef. Instead, he framed the series as a matter of accountability. According to 50 Cent, when powerful figures go unchecked for too long, their behavior becomes normalized. He argued that silence within the culture sends a dangerous message that questionable or harmful actions are acceptable simply because of fame, wealth, or influence. His words struck a nerve, especially in an industry that has historically protected its biggest names at all costs. Across 4 intense episodes, Netflix takes viewers on a deep dive into the life and career of Shawn Combs, tracing his journey from early hustles to becoming one of the most powerful figures in music. This series revisits the 1990s when Bad Boy Entertainment reshaped the sound and image of hip-hop. Through archival footage and first-hand testimony, viewers see how Combs built an empire that launched artists like the Notorious B.I.G., Mary J. Blige, and later groups such as Danity Kane into global stardom. These moments highlight his undeniable influence and vision, showing how he helped define an era of music and culture. But as the documentary unfolds, the narrative begins to shift. The rise is followed by darker chapters that challenge the polished image long associated with Combs. This series includes interviews with former associates, insiders, label employees, and artists who were once signed under Bad Boy Records. These voices paint a far more complex and troubling picture, one that contrasts sharply with the public persona of success and celebration. Viewers are introduced to accounts of internal politics, power struggles, and an environment where control and fear allegedly played a significant role behind the scenes. The documentary does not shy away from topics that many within the industry have whispered about for years. Allegations of mistreatment, legal disputes, and behind-the-scenes power plays take center stage, shedding light on issues that were rarely discussed in mainstream media. Several individuals who once walked the corridors of Bad Boy Records offer testimony about conduct they claim to have experienced or witnessed firsthand. For many viewers, these accounts were both shocking and grounding, adding human context to rumors that had circulated for decades without confirmation. What makes these testimonies particularly impactful is their consistency. While each individual brings their own perspective, many stories overlap in tone and detail, suggesting patterns rather than isolated incidents. The documentary presents these voices without heavy narration, allowing viewers to sit with the discomfort and draw their own conclusions. It's heavy, raw, and emotionally charged, forcing audiences to confront uncomfortable questions about how much influence and fame can shield individuals from accountability. As accusations and lawsuits begin to stack up in the timeline presented by the series, the contrast between public success and private controversy becomes increasingly stark. The documentary examines how legal battles were often overshadowed by chart-topping releases, brand deals, and carefully managed public appearances. In doing so, it raises broader questions about how the entertainment industry prioritizes profit and image over transparency and responsibility. Beyond the content itself, what truly pushed this documentary into cultural conversation was the controversy surrounding it. Almost immediately after its release, social media platforms exploded with reactions. Reddit threads filled with debates about journalistic integrity, editing bias, and whether certain perspectives were intentionally left out. Some critics questioned the motivations behind the project, while others defended it as a necessary confrontation with long-ignored truths. Interestingly, the backlash also revealed a deep divide among viewers. Some refused to watch the series altogether, citing concerns over rumored legal fallout or loyalty to Combs' legacy. Others praised Netflix for airing what they described as a story suppressed for years by celebrity public relations machines. For these viewers, the documentary represented a rare moment where powerful figures were subjected to scrutiny, rather than protection. The discussion quickly expanded beyond Shawn Combs himself. Viewers began reflecting on the broader culture of celebrity, questioning how many other figures have avoided accountability due to influence and carefully crafted narratives. The series sparked conversations about the responsibility of media platforms, the role of documentaries in shaping public perception, and the fine line between exposure and exploitation. Another layer of complexity comes from the documentary's editing choices. Some critics argue that certain moments were framed to provoke emotional reactions, while others believe the rawness was necessary to convey the gravity of the allegations. Stapleton addressed these concerns by explaining that the goal was not to create a hit piece, but to allow stories to be heard that had been silenced for too long. According to her, discomfort was unavoidable because the subject matter itself was uncomfortable. What cannot be denied is the impact. The series reignited debates about accountability in hip-hop and entertainment at large. It challenged audiences to reconsider narratives they had accepted for decades, and to question why certain stories never reached mainstream platforms until now. For many viewers, the documentary was less about one individual and more about a system that enables silence, protects power, and discourages dissent. In the end, Netflix's four-part series stands as more than just a documentary, it's a cultural moment. It reflects a growing shift in public expectations, where fame no longer guarantees immunity and silence is no longer accepted as the price of success. Whether viewers see it as a necessary expose or a controversial portrayal, the conversation it sparked is undeniable. As the dust continues to settle, one thing remains clear: this documentary forced the culture to look in the mirror. It asked whether we are willing to confront uncomfortable truths or continue celebrating success without questioning its cost. And in an era where accountability is increasingly demanded, that question may be more important than any answer the series provides. What also stands out in this entire situation is how carefully Netflix and the documentary team have framed their response to criticism. Rather than issuing vague statements or quietly distancing themselves, they chose to address the controversy head-on. Alexandria Stapleton made it clear that this project went through extensive legal review, long before it ever reached the public. According to her, every interview, clip, and archive used in the series was vetted not only for accuracy but for legality as well. This insistence on transparency is one of the reasons the documentary has resonated so strongly with audiences who are tired of stories being softened to protect reputations. N. Stapleton also spoke about the emotional toll of making the series. She described conversations with individuals who had stayed silent for years, out of fear of retaliation or being dismissed. For many of them, this documentary represented the first time they felt safe enough to speak openly. That context adds another layer of gravity to the series, transforming it from a simple expose into a record of voices that were once deliberately ignored. It reminds viewers that behind every allegation is a human story shaped by power imbalance and silence. Another major theme that emerges is how success can distort accountability. The documentary carefully contrasts Shawn Combs' public image, luxury, influence, and cultural impact with the private realities described by insiders. This contrast forces viewers to confront an uncomfortable truth. The same system that celebrates success often discourages scrutiny. When artists reach a certain level of fame, their behavior is no longer questioned in the same way. Instead, it is reframed, excused, or buried under achievements and branding. The series also explores how legal settlements and non-disclosure agreements played a role in shaping public perception. While lawsuits and allegations surfaced over the years, many were resolved quietly, keeping details out of the spotlight. The documentary suggests that this pattern contributed to a false sense of resolution, allowing the broader public to believe issues had been addressed when, in reality, many questions remained unanswered. This raises broader concerns about how wealth and influence can shape outcomes far beyond the courtroom. Social media reactions further amplified the impact of the series. Viewers didn't just watch and move on, they dissected every episode. Clips were shared, quotes were debated, and timelines were re-examined. Some viewers accused the documentary of bias, arguing that certain perspectives were underrepresented. Others countered that the discomfort people felt was exactly the point. The debate itself became part of the documentary's legacy, highlighting how deeply divided audiences can be when long-standing narratives are challenged. Interestingly, younger viewers experienced the series differently from those who lived through the height of bad boy records. For many, this was their first exposure to the darker side of an era they had only known through music, playlists, and social media clips. The documentary served as a reminder that cultural history is rarely as clean as it appears in hindsight. It also sparked